College football's biggest teams get their 2022 seasons underway on Saturday. We'll update this story throughout the day with final scores, highlights and what you need to know from each game. Next up, Alabama travels to Texas next week. Utah State heads home for matchup with Weber State. Next up, Ohio State faces Arkansas State at home. Notre Dame will host Marshall. Next up, the Bulldogs play Samford from the FCS on Saturday. The Ducks entertains Eastern Washington. Next up, the Aggies take on Appalachian State next Saturday. Houston State plays Northern Arizona next up. Baylor faces Brigham Young on the road. Albany hosts New Hampshire. Next up, the Wolfpack will open their home slate against Charleston Southern. East Carolina returns home to play Old Dominion. Next up, a new era of Trojans football started with fireworks as coach Lincoln Riley easily won his debut behind 3 interception returns for touchdowns by his defense and dominant display by his offense. Caleb Williams threw for 249 yards and 2 scores for USC. The Owls hung around for 2 quarters before their offensive miscues put them out of the game. Next up, the Trojans begin Pac-12 play at Stanford. Rice hosts McNeese State. Next up, Miami faces Southern Mississippi at home, while Bethune-Cookman will meet South Carolina State. Next up, Wisconsin faces Washington State at home next week. Illinois State clashes with Valparaiso. Next up, Kentucky travels to Florida in the SEC opener for both teams. Miami, Ohio, hosts Robert Morris. Next up, Arkansas opens SEC play at home against South Carolina. Cincinnati hosts Kennesaw State. Next up, Mississippi will host Central Arkansas next week. Troy opens its home schedule against Alabama A&M. Next up, Houston travels to Texas Tech next Saturday. Texas San Antonio visits Army. Erick Smith, Timanus and Paul Myerberg contributed to this report.